When President Putin addressed the Valdai Club last Friday, he made it clear that you're being lied to. The argument that Russia is not willing to negotiate or to end the war, which is the line coming from Europe, which is why they say we have to continue to support Ukraine, Putin just disproved that in talking about his commitment to achieving a breakthrough to end the permanent war. I'm Harley Schlanger. Today is October 6th. This is your LaRouche Organization daily video update. And it's going to focus on breaking out of the cycle of permanent war on behalf of a global financial oligarchy. Now, what Putin said at the Valdai Club, Helga Zepp-LaRouche characterized it as an appeal to back away from war and an appeal for a negotiation for a new strategic architecture. Now, what Putin said is we need a philosophy of complexity, because these are not simple issues and not things that can be solved with a snap of the fingers, but things that have been put in place going back to the end of World War II and the control of the U.S. by the British financial oligarchy of the City of London. And by that, I don't mean they own it. They're using narratives, they're using brainwashing to convince people that the new normal is permanent war and that the only solution is militarization. Now, there are obviously problems. The 20-point peace plan that Trump has for Gaza, well, there are problems with that. There's problems from Hamas, problems from Netanyahu, but what we're seeing has been a shift recently toward solutions. And this includes the recognition by Trump that his base is tired of wars. They don't want the United States funding more wars. That's what America First is about. It's also noticeable that Trump met with Muslim leaders and they had an agreement, which is that they would work with him to get Hamas to accept the deal. And Hamas said they would. Today in Cairo, there's a meeting between Hamas officials and Israeli officials. Is it going to solve the situation there? Well, there's a lot to discuss, a lot of problems, a lot of danger from false flags and so on. But Trump saw how isolated Israel was at the United Nations, and he sees the shift in his base away from an Israel first to an end to these wars. And so in terms of the situation in Gaza, that's the most important thing to keep in mind. The attitudes have changed, and that opens a potential. Now, does that mean that the population is ready to take to the streets? Not yet, but that's something we can do something about. Now, in Ukraine, there are people saying, well, why is Trump saying that Russia can be attacked by long-range missiles, that the U.S. will provide them? There are all kinds of stories out there, but we don't know for sure what the intent is, and we can assume that Trump is sticking to his pledges made to Putin. So the implication for Trump is that what he said about providing the Europeans the option to shoot down Russian planes, to arm Ukraine, he said, that's up to you. In other words, we're washing our hands of it. Now, whether he follows through on that or not, I can't tell you. We don't know what is going on in his mind, but we know that the European Union and NATO leaders are crazy with this idea that they're going to fight Russia. And Trump knows that. But the Europeans are very limited without full support from the United States. So what Putin was talking about at Valdai was from his vision of a window of opportunity to end the war in Ukraine and to end the killing in Gaza. That's what was behind Putin's comments, not that he's about to surrender or anything of the sort. Now, what is it that he sees that you're not getting from the mainstream media? One, Ukraine cannot win. They don't have the manpower, they don't have the physical ability, the industrial capacity, and the West can't give it to them. So in those circumstances, ultimately, Russia will win the war. Secondly, Putin sees the political pressures on Trump, whether it was the shift going on with Charlie Kirk against these wars, whether it's people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, and others speaking against them. There are, at the same time, very decisive moves toward normalization of U.S.-Russian relations and the takedown of some of the neocons, including the FBI ending its relationship with the Anti-Defamation League. So there are very important shifts going on behind the scenes. Putin sees it, we see it, you don't see it because the mainstream media won't tell you about it. Now, therefore, what Helga Zepp-LaRouche said is that the opportunity is here now to end the 500 years of the European colonial paradigm and accept the idea that the global South has a right, and they're demanding that right, to sovereign economic development. And if the American people are true to our own tradition, we should be supporters of the idea of sovereign nations acting in the interest of their people rather than the interest of the City of London. So it's up to the U.S. population to keep the pressure on Trump, to drop support for the Zionist crazies. And that's happening. It's happening in the polls. But then you need the solution. It's not just that we can't be used to war and accept it and keep voting up these $1 trillion defense budgets. What's necessary is to have a solution, an alternative. And we have it. It's the LaRouche Oasis Plan. This has now been discussed with leaders of most of the countries in the world. It's been presented each week at the International Peace Coalition Zoom call on Friday. There's a lot of discussion. There's some disagreement. Some people say you can't get an agreement on this, or water is not the solution. But there's a process. There's a discussion going on. And if we can get more of you out organizing to talk to people about this as a solution, the pressure on Trump will continue to fight for a solution. The Russians are going to continue to fight. The Chinese will. The Arab world is getting more involved now. And then the only question is, how do you outflank the British? Now, the main tool the oligarchy has is media brainwashing. And it works on several levels. First of all, they deny you the truth of the situation, so you don't really know. Secondly, they demoralize you. They say there's nothing you can do about it. Putin is weak. Netanyahu is strong. The Arabs are no good. Muslims are terrible. There's no way to have peace between Muslims and Jews. They have all these stories out there. Well, don't believe them. They're made up. They're the excuse for the permanent war. And to back that up, they have false flags, like this attack on the synagogue in London, which is clearly something that was orchestrated. A patsy drives into a crowd and then jumps out and starts stabbing people, and then he's shot and killed, and we find out his name is Jihadi. How much more obvious could it be? The point is, this strategy of the oligarchy is not working very well because the mainstream media is not convincing the majority of the population that war is the solution, that genocide against Palestinians is the solution, that more money for Israel is the solution. Americans are rejecting that. The Europeans are rejecting that. Hundreds of thousands are turning out in the streets. Political parties in support of war are collapsing in the polls. So their strategy is not working. And what we have to do is outwork them. Now, I'm going to be putting a link in the description section to the strategy around the Oasis Plan. The LaRouche solution for the Middle East crisis by incentivizing both sides to work together for economic development. Study it. Think about it. Share it. Get people talking about it. There is a solution. The solution is not to have hope that suddenly people will stand around and sing kumbaya and break bread together. The hope is that they can recognize that as human beings, fellow human beings, they have common interests. And most important of that common interest is a future of peace and economic cooperation. That's how we're going to break through. And the potential is there. Let's grab it now.